Nobody calls Dennis Collins the most important car collector in America. He doesn't appear on that list, doesn't seek that distinction, and has spent the last decade actively ensuring he never will. What he has instead is a building in Wiley, Texas with no signage, a keypad nobody else fully controls, and a collection of automobiles that would reclassify his entire public identity if the world ever saw it. Fast and loud made him famous. Collins Brothers Jeep made him wealthy. But what he built in silence, out of camera range, across 30 years of quiet acquisitions, is something that neither television nor any public record has ever touched. Richard Rawlings called him a partner. His customers called him a dealer. The tight community of serious automobile collectors uses a different word: keeper. Because while everyone else was building brands on auction day drama and YouTube reveal videos, Collins was quietly pulling specific vehicles from circulation permanently. Not for future listings, not for museum loans, but for a climate-controlled Texas facility where no camera crew has ever been given unrestricted access and where the inventory appears on no public record. The building sits adjacent to Collins Brothers Jeep, but shares none of its identity. No signage, no foot traffic, no posted hours. Entry requires a keypad code that rotates, and most people who've worked for Collins for years have never stepped inside. According to those close to his inner circle, even Richard Rawlings hasn't seen every vehicle stored there, which tells you everything about how completely Collins controls access to this space. This isn't an extension of his dealership. It's a vault built for permanence rather than display. What makes this collection different from every other private automotive archive in the country isn't the price of individual cars. It's the categories they represent. These are VIN number 0001 vehicles, prototype builds contractually required to be destroyed, ghost cars carrying chassis numbers that match no government database, and automobiles with documented ownership trails connecting them to names that haven't faded from American memory. Any single one of these categories would constitute a serious collector's archive. Collins has assembled all of them under one roof, and that combination doesn't exist anywhere else in the private collector world. The VIN-0001 situation alone breaks conventional collector logic. When a manufacturer launches a new model, the first automobile off the production line carries the lowest vehicle identification number by definition. Ford holds them, destroys them, or assigns them to executives. Two confirmed VIN number 0001, vehicles resting under covers in a private Texas garage, sits well outside any normal range of collecting achievement. One is a first-year Mustang with a VIN that predates Ford's own public showroom debut for that model. The other is a prototype BMW built for internal corporate testing, never intended for any transaction under any circumstances. The 1965 Mustang GT Fastback, with that opening VIN, came to Collins through channels that remain deliberately obscured. Some accounts trace it to a corporate test facility liquidation. Others describe a private estate sale where the car changed hands only once before reaching Dennis. What isn't disputed is that the vehicle doesn't appear on any public registry, has never surfaced at any auction, and has never been documented in any Collins YouTube content across years of automotive media work. For someone who built his public identity around finding and filming classic Fords, that sustained silence around a VIN 0001 Mustang tells you exactly how differently he treats this inventory. The prototype section tells a more uncomfortable story for the manufacturers involved. Among the vehicles Collins has acquired are builds that Ford, Dodge, and General Motors would prefer didn't exist outside their own secured facilities. Concept cars and manufacturer mules carry engineering details, abandoned design directions, and technology that was tested and then deliberately suppressed. Automakers destroy these vehicles for legal and competitive reasons, And intact examples held in private hands create problems nobody wants to resolve through official channels, and that's precisely where Dennis Collins has positioned himself. One vehicle reportedly carried Ford experimental badging and came equipped with an active suspension system that never appeared on any consumer model the company produced. A second, with apparent Dodge origins, displayed design language from an early 2000s concept program cancelled before it reached a single auto show floor. How these machines left their original facilities traces back to the same element every time: retired engineers who built them, estate liquidations conducted under non-disclosure agreements, and a trust network Collins spent 3 decades assembling. He cultivated the relationships that made him the first person those engineers would call. The ghost cars occupy a different level entirely. These are automobiles that produce nothing when you run their numbers, vehicles with chassis identifiers matching no public database, and origins that nobody involved has ever formally described. One of the most discussed among the small group with any access is an early General Motors prototype. No badge, no plates, no registry entry anywhere. Its body combines elements of the Corvette C4 with design language from the Pontiac Banshee, a concept that GM cancelled before building any production units. Underneath it, the engineering deepens the mystery. Aerospace-grade aluminum panels, wiring that departs from standard General Motors schematics, and digital components that experts believe predate any known public market introduction by years. Some connect it to defense contractor testing programs. Alongside it sits a blacked-out Mustang variant with wider track, reshaped front geometry, and no manufacturer identification anywhere on the vehicle. Collins has never addressed either car publicly, and no production equivalent exists in any known record. The celebrity ownership portion of his archive carries a different kind of historical weight. A Cadillac with title documentation tracing directly to the Kennedy estate, registered during John F. Kennedy's years as a United States Senator from Massachusetts, sits preserved in the facility. Not the presidential limousine, but a personal coupe with clean paperwork that Collins has reportedly kept private out of genuine reverence rather than strategy. A Porsche 911 with California DMV records connecting it to Solar Productions, Steve McQueen's company during the early 1970s, holds another covered space. Adjacent to it rests a Shelby GT 500 with Carroll Shelby's personal signature inscribed inside the glove box, a direct inscription rather than a promotional addition, and a Cadillac Eldorado with a factory-ordered pink-trimmed interior, its ownership trail documented through Graceland and tied to Elvis Presley's final touring years, sits exactly as it left the factory floor. The military Jeep resting at the back of this facility doesn't belong to any civilian collector category. Never shown in any video, never spotted in any background footage, it reportedly carries military-grade suspension, modular armor attachment points, and an experimental drivetrain that engineers who've heard the description believe combines diesel and electric power delivery, possibly tied to special operations mobility requirements during the Gulf War period. Its value is incalculable in the most direct sense. Nothing comparable exists anywhere else. It sits under a military tarp, and Collins has never mentioned it publicly. The deepest room reportedly holds Collins's permanent keeps, vehicles he's never photographed and apparently never intends to sell. One is a Mopar prototype, carrying experimental Chrysler driveline technology from a program that the 2008 financial collapse ended before production. Composite body, aluminum block, digital instrumentation years ahead of its market introduction, and reportedly a promise Collins made to the car's original designer that it would never be commercially exploited. The car hasn't moved, and Collins has never spoken about it. 3 reasons explain why the collection stays hidden, and none of them contradicts the others. Security is straightforward. Controversy is the second layer. Prototype automobiles that manufacturers listed as destroyed, ghost cars with no registry presence, and a military jeep that shouldn't exist outside a secured facility are far simpler to hold privately than publicly. The third reason is timing. A collection this dense generates more attention surfacing on Collins's terms than emerging piece by piece through second-hand accounts. He understands that silence compounds interest in ways that regular content releases never could. Fast and Loud ended its run, but the collecting never stopped. The cameras just stopped following. Somewhere in Wiley, Texas, under soft covers and controlled climate, behind a building with no sign and a keypad that only one person fully controls, the most historically significant private automobile collection in the country waits for the moment Dennis Collins decides the world has waited long enough.